If somebody has a nervous breakdown or there's some sort of mental health crisis, it's definitely an intense period of mental and emotional distress that can make it difficult, very difficult to function in daily life.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, Dr. Brian here, your host for Coaching to Change. This episode is a little interesting because we're going to talk about something that might be a little controversial. I mean, what can I say? I'm a master coach and I do developmental health coaching. It relates to developmental coaching, life coaching, and more importantly, the platform is based on mental health. Now, my experience comes from personal experience as a veteran who's been through quite a bit and has studied and understood the concepts of mental health. I've also been certified at various levels to the master level where I have a list of hours and hours and hours of experience working with various people. I'm proud to say it's international because I don't work with people just in the US. I have clients in various parts of the country, and it is mainly because people have sought out my experience, my insight, just things that they saw online or maybe even personal reference. The interesting thing that I want to share to you is how, as a coach, where is the line from being a coach and also being a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist? Now, if you follow me, you know that I'm actually in school right now getting another degree, a doctorate level degree in psychology. So I am studying this field, but I'm not there yet, and I'm not trying to claim to be one. Because the truth of the matter is there's a whole lot of other, things that I have to achieve before I can put that third, level of doctorate behind my name. But if I am working with a client or the client seeks me out and there's a sense of urgency, how is it that I can manage that particular client without either pushing them over the edge, alienating that person, or maybe just doing too much that I'm not technically supposed to do, not licensed to do for that matter. But at the same time, I have a responsibility to that client, correct? So we're going to talk about what happened in this situation, because there are other coaches out there who may agree or not agree. There's going to be psychologists and psychiatrists out there who may agree and not agree. So I want to start this platform by saying, this particular conversation by saying something that's very important. First and foremost, my responsibility is to the person that's reaching out to me. Do you agree? I would hope so. Anybody who seems to have some level of urgency, we want to be available to them. Now, I will let you know that I have been certified by a certain university that has given me the credentials behind mental health coaching. I have achieved and acquired their certifications, and I have been trained and have the knowledge, in addition to my own personal experience, to be aware of how to say, what to say, how to respond, how to manage, how to deal with it. And I will tell you, they will say you need to seek professional assistance. Now, I have some professional degrees, but in this particular area, I am not qualified, not yet at least. Despite my current education, despite what I know, I'm still technically not authorized. But as a human being and as that person's coach, if they are reaching out, where do I stop? So here's what happened. This person was not my client. This person actually reached out to me with a very vague question. And the question was simply, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to misquote this person. What does it mean to have a mental breakdown? So I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of text messages on my website, draaronpbryant.com. I get various things, correspondence, let's use that word. I get various correspondence from different people, and I do not know the source, and I don't know the gender. I don't know, where it's coming from. I just know that the information is whatever it is that I read. Now, you, like myself, will read and try to say, oh, somebody is just asking a question. So I'm thinking from a professional perspective, they're just simply wanting to, it could be a college student for all I know, just seeking my, insight. So in this particular scenario, this random question, there's no warning, there's no background. The person's not a client. I don't recognize the email. They don't provide a name. For all I know, it's a fellow coach is asking me a question. So as we move on, this particular person digests the information that I provide. I gave them this very vague but yet insightful response to their question about mental breakdown. As a coach, there is a growth process. There's working with somebody, being able to collaborate with that person, and you're working towards whatever goals they have. So there's a lot of history and background. Not much different from a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist or psychologist will sit you down and they want to inquire on how they can assist you. So, I never expect someone to just call with an emergency without at least letting me know or giving me a heads up or a warning. I do have on my website, there is a crisis line that's available. Typically is for veterans, but I would imagine that even if you're not a veteran, they're not going to turn you away, but they're going to try to reference you to their appropriate person. On my website, in addition to that, I always say if you're in a crisis, reach out to me. Again, if you are in a crisis, I'm not going to turn you away. I'm going to do the best I can to get as much information, and then I'm going to provide you in the direction that will best suit your needs. And this is basically at the point when I feel you are stable enough to understand, respond, and then we go from there. Based on all the training that I have, one thing you do not want to do is you don't want to alienate the person. Chances are, whatever it is that he or she is going through, it's a crisis situation that has to be responded to at that time. I'm not going to tell them to take a number and I'll get back to them. Absolutely not. Any person will tell you you want to try to manage them, get them to a point of stability, a rationale, and then kind of go from there. It's a situation. There's no perfect scenario or perfect answer. The bottom line is somebody or this individual's in a crisis and they're reaching out to you. So if they are doing that, it's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's my responsibility. No, that's not absolutely true. However, as a human being, I would like to think it's all of our responsibility to be there for that person. So, it's almost vague now. Not vague, but it's almost to the point where I almost don't even remember the details because the conversation started taking a turn in a direction where even I became alarmed. And when that happened, this whole part of my brain had shut down, like this whole coaching side of it, and it's like this alert just got switched on. And at that point, I was so focused on that particular individual. Now, I'm going to give you the overall scenario, what happened first, because I don't want to bore you and keep you in suspense. What ended up happening was this individual ended up being in a crisis. This individual even went as far as sending me photos of the scarring that took place on that person's arm. this individual, and this is where, interesting enough, my medical side kicked in. I was able to have a conversation, and this has actually worked in my favor. By identifying the scarring, I could tell which one went first, which one was last, the lacerations, and I was able to have a conversation by identifying the type of lacerations, what they did, when they did it, which one was first versus last. And that actually distracted the person because they were sort of taken back by how much information that I knew, but not even visibly being there. That worked in my favor to continue to get that person calm, and we were able to understand a few more things, such as part of the pain actually would derive from that person's mother. The person's mother had made statements and comments related to that person being not worthy, go ahead and do it, blah, blah, blah. I can't imagine how that must have felt, but I did understand that this is why that person was going in this direction, in addition to everything else he or she was going through. So that just compounded on that level of emotion this person is dealing with. So moving forward, my conversation and my first responsibility was to get this person calm. My second responsibility for me and my interpretation at that moment was to make sure that person was going to survive. So my medical side kicked in, and I wanted to address the urgency of the injuries. I definitely did not want that person to bleed out. I did notice from the injuries that person did not quite go to certain areas of the body that would have created massive bleeding. So I was very grateful for that. However, I could also tell that because of remember, when somebody's reaching out to you, when they're calling, they take the time to send a message, they're seeking help. So it's almost like, you have to understand that they are not willing to go the distance. And I actually knew that because of this. Part of it was obviously, one, the question, two, the reaching out to me, and three, it was the type of scarring that was going on. Much of it wasn't that deep. It was almost as if they were testing, or maybe it was just too painful. There may be possible hesitation. So I took all that and I digested it so I can be able to see and identify and understand, okay, we have some time. Am I playing the coach role? Or am I going to step over the line and try to be something that I'm not qualified for? So again, I take a step back and recognize what's the most important thing here, and that's to protect the person. And that is by protecting them. Now we're past the medical point. We're at the point where, do I continue to conversate, continue to talk outside of my expertise, or am I trying to delicately refer that person to somebody who has the qualifications? So it's almost like picking up that phone over there and dialing 911, putting that person on speaker and saying, listen, as I'm trying to talk and calm, and that 911 operator is skilled enough to be able to figure out what's happening, and I can strategically throw out clues, et cetera, et cetera. And you definitely don't want this person to be alert to the whole situation. You don't want to alarm that person. You don't want to freak them out. And you have to maintain a level of trust. Remember, the person reached out to me. So for whatever reason, that person trusted me. I don't want to lose that trust. I need to keep that trust, so that way I can continue to have that relationship that's going to keep that person from doing whatever he or she may ultimately want to do. Good news is this person I'm not saying is doing fine, but this person is alive. This person is recovering. Injuries are recovering. And and there have been certain parameters put in place to keep that person from having to deal with negative influences. I am not continuing any of the therapeutic communication, but I am maintaining a friendly level of communication to let that person know I'm still here. So that way, again, maintaining that level of friendship, communication, and trust is still existing. So I don't want that person to feel that they have been abandoned. Not at all. That is, again, these are various levels of importance that allows us to ensure that person feels comfortable. When somebody has a nervous breakdown or there's some sort of mental health crisis, it's definitely an intense period of mental and emotional distress that can make it difficult, very difficult to function in daily life. I mean, these are the things that trigger somebody. And I mentioned that this person's mother added to that emotional distress. So whatever that he or she was going through, and then you have your parent just compound on the top of that, that's gonna possibly become that trigger that put that person over the edge. But again, reaching out to me to communicate, to try to understand why he or she was going through that, why did they feel that way, that was enough for me to understand that somebody was seeking help. And I am so glad that they reached out. Feeling overwhelmed or incapacitated, inability to cope with everyday tasks, pain, fear, uneasiness. I don't remember all of these off the top of my head, so I'm actually reading it. Some of the things that I have researched, plus I have studied on, and these are just some of the various symptoms relating to when you're having a possible nervous breakdown, or why and how it comes about. The interesting thing that I also uncovered and learned was things such as muscle pain. The restlessness and irritability, decreased libido for those who may be possibly married, and knowing that your sex drive has diminished to a point where it's very, very low compared to in the past, or almost nothing. These things are part of the mental health crisis. These things are part of the elements or clues that will allow you to understand this further. Rapid mood swings is another one. I'm sure people might be familiar with that, where somebody could be here and then they're here, and they just trigger and they just somehow react. That's not because they're necessarily angry at you. It could be because that person is just going through something. Again, the elements of nervous breakdown or mental health, these are crises. These are intense situations. Changes in personality and sleep patterns. Somebody who may not sleep all the time because their brain is going through stuff and their emotional level is taking them through highs and lows. They could possibly not sleep, or they could be somebody that sleeps too much, doesn't want to get out of bed, don't want to deal with society. I did a podcast on isolation. Listen to that podcast. I talked about how somebody may want to separate themselves. The nightmares could be something. Now, some of you who listen to my shows may understand how I talk about a lot of these the different elements related to PTSD, mental health challenges, and you'll hear a lot of overlap. PTSD will have relationships to nightmares. PTSD will have relationship to mood swing. PTSD will have relationships to, emotional ups and downs. Other physical symptoms like nausea and dizziness. So I would imagine, I don't want to get medically, I don't want to get too medical on this, but, when you're dealing with a lot of these emotional roller coasters, I'll use that word, that could be very exhausting to a person. This is one of the reasons why a lot of psychiatrists will come in handy, because they have the ability to provide prescription. And therefore, if you are somebody who has a hard time sleeping, your emotional levels are going through the roof or dropping too low, possibly even their irritability, there's a lot of these different elements, all these different emotions, all these different reactions. Sometimes considering medication may be something that a psychiatrist may, consider. I'm definitely not going to comment or go into that right now. That maybe down the road, once I finish my psychology degree, and if I even choose to be a psychiatrist, which, to be honest, at this point, I don't think so. Regardless of my medical background, I just don't see myself wanting to support the concept of providing medication. Me personally, don't feel we have enough grasp on the brain, which, the foundation of our mental health, to understand how to maneuver enough to just provide medication. I might be saying this from a very biased perspective as a veteran and somebody who has had pill pushed into my direction, and my fellow, vets that I know, we've had pills pushed in our direction. And now that I have the level of education and knowledge behind me, I can honestly say for a fact it was done recklessly. And it was. I can say that because I have the education now, I have the experience firsthand, and it was done recklessly, and I have a huge opposition against it, where I feel that there should be more of a, let me put it this, let me give credit to where credit is due. VA has come to a point of improvement where there's resources for holistic health, and that is kind of the direction that should have been done decades ago. That should have been done for our Vietnam vets. That should have been done for our World War II vets. But that just wasn't something that we as people understood or knew about. We've come a long way, and so now I see that there are other alternatives. But unfortunately, pharmaceutical companies are still a multi-billion-dollar industry, and therefore we still see that is something that is the first thing as an option. So that's a whole nother show. So let's get back to talking about the mental breakdown. If you're listening to this and you're somebody who's like myself, who is always looking to improve, you're listening to my shows because you want to digest the information that I'm providing so you can possibly try to manage some things on your own. Here's some things that you can do. If you feel like any of those things I just said is something that you possibly feel within, again, I'm going to read this because I want to make sure that this is very clear and I don't miss anything. But some areas that you can actually focus on to assist you in trying to manage it, if you feel you're getting to that point, without insulting anybody, one of the most common things you have to consider is removing people out of your life. There are certain people that are in our lives that might be toxic. There are people in our lives that are not always having your best interest. It's interesting because I may say remove people out of your life, but you might be self-inducing some of that. We have these virtual mechanisms, and we're always on social media, and if you're somebody who likes to blog, or you're somebody who's on an app and you get responses, and there's people out there who are just going to be who they are, just negative, block them, delete them, or maybe remove yourself from doing that particular activity if you're finding that you're having a hard time. Don't force yourself to fit in someone's box. Trying to be something you're not, or trying to fit in with somebody, trying to force yourself to have that accommodation with another person that may not quite be somebody that you're comfortable with. I can spin that in different directions, but the key is making sure that those of you are around and those you're aligning yourself with, try to just maintain a healthy relationship. People that you know are of like mind, people who are supportive, people who are good people that make you smile and laugh, people that you know that are just good in nature. Those are the kind of individuals you want to be around that allow you to be you. Don't procrastinate and keep things for last moment. That's a good one. If you are a procrastinator, and some people are that way by nature, work on that. Start setting deadlines to try to change things. Try to give yourself a moment or time to get something done instead of waiting to the last minute. So I'll give you an example if I'm got college students out there listening, or if you're working and you have a deadline. If you know that's the kind of thing you do, you know what? Try to force yourself to get things done a little sooner, and then add a layer of review on top of it. So you now have to have time before you submit whatever it is you're doing. Just avoid trying to do things at last minute. Now, some of you are probably saying, well, that's when I perform the best. I like to be able to, get things done, and when I'm under pressure, I perform well. And you know what? The thing is, I can relate to that. But if that's causing you anxiety, if it's causing you some stress and drama, etc., then you may want to rethink that. Don't make unnecessary commitments just to be nice. That's an interesting one. Again, that kind of ties back to forcing yourself to fit in someone's box. Don't try to fix people who don't find issues with themselves. That means talking to a wall. And my mom used to say that all the time growing up. She says, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a wall. That just means somebody who's just not listening. So if that individual is not listening, then move on. Sometimes people don't want to change. So keep that in mind. Learn to say no. I don't think I have to elaborate. Just learn to say no. If it's not something you need to do, not something you want to do, not who you are, say no. Avoid overdoing things in unhealthy competitions. Stop trying to compete with other people, and especially if it's something that you're not, interested in doing. And if it's within your limits, keep it within your limits. Don't push yourself past that where you're going to stress. And then you find yourselves overdoing it, and now you're stressing. Now you're at a point where you are having to, possibly feel like you're trying to compete. Again, you're starting to see some similarities to some of the previous things that I'm talking about. Don't trade your authenticity for approval. Again, that sounds like something else I just said. Again, trying to fit in somebody's box. Don't trade your authenticity, because you are you. And we're all different. And I talked about that related to mental health. Be real. Say what you feel. It will save a lot of time and trouble. Again, just do your thing. Do you. Don't care what others think about you. Take criticism with a grain of salt. Now, this is a good one because I want to, again, it ties into what we just talked about, but sometimes being critiqued can be helpful. If you're at work, your supervisor, your boss, your parents, a friend, sometimes them giving you some self-analysis could be a good thing because we always want to improve. We want to do better. So it's not a bad thing for somebody to give you constructive criticism. That's the key. Don't get attached to anything in life, neither people nor things. You know what? I probably should have proofed that before I said that because I don't necessarily agree with that. Don't get attached to anything in life, neither people nor things. No, I don't agree with that. And, it's unfortunate that I said that out loud because, being attached to some things is not always a bad thing. Like for instance, I have a puppy. I'm attached to my puppy. My puppy's name is Shadow. He's a Shih Tzu. And that little dog is, I swear I think he can feel my emotions. And his name is Shadow initially because he was black, but he's outgrown the color, but he still follows me everywhere I go like my shadow. And surprisingly enough, even though I have admitted to not wanting a service dog, he has become by default one. And there are times where he can make me smile when I don't want to smile or don't feel like smiling. And there are times where he can just change my, demeanor. So why would I not want to be attached? So again, that is something I don't agree with. Now, things on the other hand, material things, yeah, I would imagine. I have this pen. I love this pen. But if I lost it tomorrow, you know what? It's not the end of the world. I used to have a ring right here that I wore. I've had it ever since the military. And I don't want to go into details about what kind of ring it was, but I don't have it anymore. And I've had that ring for, I can't even remember, a long time. And it's gone. And I was really, really bothered at first. Really bothered because it was very sentimental. And again, without going into detail, it was very unique, and it was something that I had, and anybody who knows me knows about that ring, but I don't have it anymore. So is it the end of the world? No, absolutely not. In fact, I have done some other things to kind of distract myself from it and move it on. Be with people who appreciate what you do for them. Oh, I like that. We don't have to seek it out, but if you're a good person and you do things, you volunteer, these type of people will acknowledge that, and that's always good for the emotion. Serve only those who deserve, serve only what they deserve. Again, don't necessarily agree, we should serve everybody. Law enforcement, firefighters, they don't pick and choose who they serve. They protect and serve all the individuals. Don't carry harsh feelings in heart, keep your intentions pure. I like that. Definitely like that. Without getting spiritual, there's a saying in the Bible about, basically forgiveness. Some of us do it better than others. I know I'm not somebody that does it very well. To this day, I still have certain relatives that I just will not forgive, and because I just don't think they deserve it. So it is what it is. But I mean, for the most part, I do okay. And the last one here, they talked about don't tolerate unnecessary drama. I couldn't agree with that more. So all of these things, these are strategies to try to help you relax. We want to try to do as much as we can when it comes to our mentality. My whole being and purpose is to try to help people understand. I'm a developmental health coach. My goal is to help me understand and to help you understand based on what I'm studying, what I'm learning, what I'm doing. And I'm sharing that with you. And this particular person who reached out to me, who was on the edge of making a decision that he or she could not come back from, I'm very grateful that person reached out to me, and I had enough knowledge, enough wisdom to be able to support that person. So continue to listen, continue to watch my shows, and I'll continue to provide you content. I told you my goal is to be very transparent and honest with you. I do all my research, and I make sure that I provide enough information for you to continue moving forward. My shows, all my social medias, the reels that I provide, everything is authentic, everything is my own. However, the research comes from different directions. I try to get and pull as much information as I can, and that data is provided in a way that's simple to understand. The concepts are applicable, and more importantly, they are validated. And I say that with hesitation because I wanted to make sure I was using the right word. I don't try to just Wikipedia stuff. I do have a PhD, which was my very first degree, and theory and research is what they trained us to do. And I'm quite good at that. And I make sure that the information that I get has been validated with different resources and information. Now, I told you, earlier, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not correct. I pulled this information based on a summary of data, and if they feel that not getting attached to something is healthy for, mental capacity and mental health, then there's a point there. Again, I'm still learning. So this is the information that you can hear and you decide. I'm not the decision maker. I'm just the deliverer to get you to understand what it is that they're providing to you. All right, so that's my show. Always thank you for listening, tuning in, watching, and this is always an amazing opportunity to do this. Every day that I'm here providing another set of information is another day that I am grateful that somebody's out there receiving my information. So again, continue to keep watching, continue to keep listening, and always know that I'm here. And always know somebody's listening. It may not be me listening, but somebody's listening. But if I'm listening, I got your back. My name is Dr. Bryant. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.